Are you surprised? We started on time! Welcome, everybody, to a debut and special episode of a brand new thing that we're starting here, After Action Report. And today we are going to be breaking down 4 of the 8 factions that had their draft not too long ago. But I can't do this by myself. I'm going to bring in some amazing people with me. First off, Miss Danny from Chill to Action Girl. And also Natty Vu. I often see him on Twitch Tuesdays. And last, certainly not least, Alex Mack. How are you guys all doing?
Hello.
I'm doing great.
Excited.
Hi. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining in. See, I got a few of you guys in here. And yes, I did start exactly on time. We'll see how long that lasts. But what are we doing today? Today, we are going to be doing episode 1, Drafted for War. We're going to start off, we're each going to give our thesis, kind of our big prediction and thought from the draft that may or may not project into the next season. Share a couple of things of competitors that weren't drafted that we were maybe a little surprised about. And then, again, we're going to be breaking down the dungeon, usual suspects, the den, and Quirky Mercs, looking at what kind of people were drafted, what kind of numbers did those veterans have, and what we might look at from those factions as far as the landscape of each and every division. So to start off with, Danny, did you have a big thesis or a big thought that you came out of that draft last week from? And we are going to be majorly spoiling this draft, so you are warned.
Yes, big spoiler warning up on top, but yeah, rookies. That's my biggest takeaway from this draft. I can't not believe how many rookies were taken into the draft, and it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing at all. It just really caught me by surprise that a lot of new names went very soon and are pretty predominant in some of the factions going forward. So this is going to be an interesting year. This is going to be a very experimental year because we're going to see what the rookies can do.
Absolutely. If you have comments or questions about our assessments or any of our theses or any of our people that we mention, be sure to throw down a Streamlabs, and Alex will be checking that and letting me know when those come in, as well as any super chats you want to throw in. Nat, what was your big takeaway from the draft?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with Danielle. Like, rookies was definitely the theme of the draft. Like, I'm so surprised that so many rookies were drafted so early and so often. But I think that has to do with some of the managers wanting to find their next Adam Collins. And I can understand that, but at the same time, I'm very surprised that some of these veterans were drafted later than I expected them to be drafted, or they weren't drafted at all. So that was very surprising to me.
And Alex, what do you have?
I definitely agree with Nat and Danielle. I did not expect so many rookies were going to go into this drafted. I know a bunch of the rookies, and I think they're just like a bunch of us, like just doing a lot of these interviews and shows and everything. They're incredibly talented. I've never had any doubt about that. We just never had so many rookies on the draft list before. It was such an exciting lineup of draftees. I didn't think it was going to translate so much into the actual drafted list overall, just because when it comes to rookies, not every single rookie is going to be a Chance Ellison or an Adam Collins. And so it's a high risk, high reward management style when it comes to drafting, which I was very surprised about throughout.
Absolutely. And so kind of following right along with what you guys are saying, my idea is that we're going to see a much wider gap in the rankings for this season. Because, again, we've got those competitors that are established, that we've known that are going to have that level of accuracy, but then we have all these rookies that are going to be wild cards. We might see some of them falling a little bit lower down the ranks, some of them shooting high up. So there's going to be a lot of changing up in some of these rankings, as well as maybe some more distinct differences in the top tier and maybe middle and lower tiers than we've seen previously. But moving right along in then, speaking of all the drafts, here is a list of, this is the entire draft as it stands currently. We know here in the MTS, anything can change at any given time. There could be trades, there could be drops, everything is possible. But what were some names on here that were not on this list that surprised you? Danny, what kind of names did you maybe miss on there?
So, honestly, I think this was the biggest talk on the Twitter sphere for a while. Warfather not being drafted at all is kind of a big wow for me, especially with the amount of rookies that were taken at the times that they were taken. Warfather has a big character, very good in trivia. We've seen what he can do. Would have loved to have seen what more he could do inside of the league, and especially with his character work, I really enjoyed him. So not having him inside of the league is kind of a bummer for me. Seeing Vanessa, Robert, Montano not inside of the draft either was kind of a big shock to me. And out of the rookies, let me just double check because I want to make sure that I get his last name right. James Bainey. James Bainey made a big impression on me whenever we talked to the Star Wars News Network people, and he with Lacey Gillerin and John Hoey, they all do the Resistance podcast. I'm so sorry, I can't think of that full name, but James, especially with Star Wars being a division that I think a lot of people are really focusing on for the draft, not seeing James was a huge bummer to see. I'm pretty bummed about that one particular rookie not getting drafted.
Very good. Nat, did you have any names other than that, or?
Yeah, when you told us to think of two veterans to pick that we were surprised about, my veterans were exactly the same as Danielle's. I am surprised that Warfather was not drafted because, in my opinion, he's not the best at trivia, but he is definitely above average. He's 1-on-1 singles.
Hold on, he's pretty great. I mean, come on.
I'm not saying he's not great.
Yeah, we'll get there. Alex has a lot of thoughts on these rookies, so we'll get there. We'll get there.
No, I definitely. Warfather's great. He helped me win my Schmoedown match with Dylan, so I'm always going to be appreciative of that. And he's honestly one of my favorite characters to ever be in this one. And I'm really going to miss him because he nailed that character work down. He's a wrestling fan, so he has that aspect locked down. So I'm really sad that we're not going to see him in the Schmoedown. And Late to the Party. Late to the Party are great. I feel like they're so underrated as competitors. I think they have a losing record each, but their record doesn't showcase how good they are. They are really good. And I was even surprised last year when they weren't drafted. And in terms of rookies, I haven't been keeping up with rookies too much, but it is surprising that the ones I have heard of weren't drafted. Iman Frost. Yes. That's her name. I don't know a lot. I'm surprised that she wasn't drafted, but she does have a great attitude about proving herself in the developmental league. And also Eric Davis is another one that I've had my eye on because he's a New York guy, and us New York guys got to stick together. So I really wish he was drafted too.
All right. Alex, your 1 to 2 missed people from the veterans as well as the rookies.
I had 10 people that I was.
That's why I said 1 to 2. I figured you would.
I'm not going to give you a list of 50 people, and I might have made a few tweaks. But some of the ones that I was really surprised about is Brett Sheridan, Andres Gallegos. Because Brett Sheridan, that's a guaranteed. That's essentially having two competitors on your team technically. Because I don't know what they're gonna do with this Flouse. That's not technically a separate record, but he had entrance of the year last year, and so he's definitely a popular character. I was very surprised he wasn't picked up. Guaranteed potential points right there. And having Brett, he's technically 1-1, I guess, right now. But Andres, you can argue he's a three-way, 3-division competitor, and there's just so much more I want to say, but I can't do that.
So looking up here at some comments in here, Mr. Belfort, I think this is the Who Stock Exchange. Yes, we will get into the FinStock Exchange next week when we get back over the rest of the factions. But yes, definitely some interesting thoughts there. Also, Kate and Sunny. Cat and Sunny,
Cat and
yes.
Sunny.
Very, very,
Yeah.
those were ones that I saw mentioned that weren't in there. Trying to see if there were, David Campbell, another rookie that we didn't see as well. So very, yes, definitely some interesting ones that never got mentioned. I would definitely say go ahead.
Aside from Drew McWeeny during the sign-on, I was also anticipating a big veteran return. Kind of like low-key, someone could hypothetically just slip in and be like, I don't know, Clark Wolf, just because, bam, even though they've been vocal about not wanting to return or anything like that. I just I was kind of waiting for something like some manager to make a weird random move like that. A little bit.
Quite possibly we could have seen. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm so sorry, Megs. I think with the way that the point rules are set up now, I think managers are being very particular about who they're drafting, and I think that's also why Brett Sheridan didn't get drafted, is because of the point loss rules. If you lose a match, it matters now. So you can't just pick up players that you don't have a lot of.
Yeah, well, it's specifically, I think we're thinking about if you are TKO'd or KO'd, you have the potential of losing points actually for your faction. So I think there's definitely going to be some thoughts into that, maybe some different changes in strategy, which are going to be very interesting to see. I think nobody that I had thought about as far as not getting drafted wasn't mentioned. I think Warfather, more for his personality, definitely, and his presence within the league was definitely a big surprise. And Robert Montano was someone that I think really could have used another shot at it. He unfortunately came up against Snyder in his Snyder-sance and was knocked out pretty early there, but I think there was definitely plenty of potential there for that. And wanted to quick say thanks to Ben Rayner for stopping by and just saying hi. Thank you. We are, I think, having a great show so far, so we're just going to keep right on going, and we are going to start looking at specific draft lists themselves. So let us start with the person who had the first round pick, which is the Dungeon. So just kind of breaking down what kind of competitors these guys had, what we think this outlook is going to look like for this particular faction. So with the Dungeon, they have a total of 9 veteran competitors on their roster and an additional 3 rookies. Now, 3 of their competitors are going to be considered multi-division. Now, when I look at multi-division, we're looking at, if they're singles and teams, that is still considered there's different divisions, but when you think about multi-division, you think about singles and teams plus maybe IG, or plus maybe Star Wars, or Star Wars and IG. So their multi-division players are going to be Mara with the addition of Star Wars as well as IG. Dan Merle is looking to potentially go into singles and teams and IG. And then you have Adam Witt, who has done singles and teams and is also a Star Wars competitor as well. Depending on what Kaiser wants to do with this faction, he may have those people just focusing on one division, but he has 3 potential competitors that can go multi-division currently. If you're looking at kind of who are the former champions on this faction, you have Merle, who is a 4-time singles champion, a former teams champion. Bateman had the singles belt, and Mark Novik had the IG belt back in 2018. Now, looking at accuracies, first off, there is Parker and Kanopik for IG. Parker had a 93% accuracy last year, which is only beaten in this current season by the current champion, which is Chandra. So I thought that was very interesting. There was a lot of hype behind him, and then once he lost chance, I feel like things kind of fizzled out. But those numbers don't really lie. And Mara Kanopik might surprise you. She only has a 67% accuracy. She was 5-1 in her season. And something that I noticed looking back is that the accuracy inside of IG increased by an average of about 10% per season. So if you kind of work that backwards from now back to when she was playing, she would have been at the top of the heap at that point. And not only does the accuracy of the league itself increase by 10% or the division, you're seeing competitors with the potential to go 10% increase. So knowing that, kind of what your guys' thoughts on where Mara was then and where you think she's going to end up once she comes back. Because there is that high potential with a lower number of movies to concentrate on. Matt, did you have something?
Yeah, I think the game has changed a lot, especially the IG division has changed a lot since Mara last competed. I think that she got out before the Wolves just came caving in. And that's not to say that she's not going to still be dominant. I think that we haven't seen her in a while, so she could be studying her ass off. She could be way better than she's ever been before. And looking at this dungeon draft, I feel like they did a really good job because they drafted a lot of singles and teams competitors, because when you have someone as good as Robert Parker, when you have former champion Mark Knopik, you can afford to spread the love a little bit more to singles and teams. So I think they did a really good job here.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you see they've got 7 competitors that can compete in singles and teams, 3 in IG, 4 in Star Wars potentially. So automatically you're going to be able to cover at least 2 in each division depending on how you want to utilize your team, which depending on how the tournaments go this season will play a big role in having those multiple people available.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's interesting that Mara was drafted so highly. She was the number 1 draft pick. But I think that Kaiser knows what he's doing. So I'm excited to see how Mara plays this season.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Alex.
I think, yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I agree with Nat. I think that Kaiser did an excellent job in his draft. I think it was smart to pick up Mara in the first round. I think Mara would have gone just as soon. Mara definitely would have gone in that round. I think putting Mara in the dungeon with Dan is a good move. They will help each other. They will study with each other. Dan and Ben being former faction mates that have a grudge against their old manager, I think coming back is a good thing. Out of the 12 people on this list, 3 of them are returning to the dungeon: Robert Parker, Video Drew, and Adam Witt. So they've all played with Kaiser before, and I personally think that that's a wonderful spot for those 3 players to stay in if you're gonna have to. Or if you're going to stay in a faction, I think that having those 3 specifically for the dungeon are great for the camaraderie in the group, to get the idea and the vibe going in there, because they work very well with each other. I think Molly Damon coming into this crew is a big hit. Kaiser also drafted smart. He knows that Mara's going to get a match. He knows that Molly's going to get a match. They all have matches coming up. So that's already points on the board for that. Taking Chris Jericho from Roxy was a smart move, because it's a celebrity match that you can get. Whitney Seibold, come on, like that's a steal. Seventh round, not 7th round, but like 7th pick in the for that, that's a very far place for Whitney Seibold to fall. Which is why all of these rookies, he didn't draft rookies. You'll see some factions that have a bunch of rookies before they have established players. Kaiser didn't do that. Kaiser took a chance on rookies last year. He's not. I don't want to say he's going to make the same mistake, because I think that he did a good job. The gamble just didn't work out very well for him. And I think with the rookies that he did draft, John Huey, John Flickinger, and Chris Van Vliet, those are smart picks right there. Those are very smart rookie picks, I think. And having John Huey be your backup for Star Wars, for Mara Knopik, for Molly Damon, I think is a great thing. I think those 2 are going to be his main Star Wars players. I'm sorry, I totally forgot about Adam Witt. I think he's going to I think he's going to make sure to keep Adam Witt comfortable and safe in his faction, while also paying attention to Molly. And I think John Hoey is going to be a great fit for that as well. Okay, I'm done.
I'll say, Alex, did you have any other comments about what we've talked about so far before I move on to the kind of next part of this?
Yeah. Well, honestly, going into this, I figured right out the gate, because Merle was signed on, I assumed Mara was going to go to the dungeon in the first round. And I said because from what I've heard, they're not exactly a deal together, but they've kind of mentioned that they definitely want to be in the same faction. They want to be part of the same faction family. And so this didn't surprise me in the slightest. Also, I would be hesitant to think of any manager would be like, yeah, I want Bateman, but definitely not Mara. Who's Mara? That's not a conversation anyone's having, obviously. It does. This is definitely one, to me, the best draft list, just because obviously I'm very biased. This is how I would have drafted, honestly. But you definitely want to keep a lot of the risks and towards the end, the competitors that you're kind of unfamiliar with that don't have as much play time. Then you really make the gamble and put them towards the end. But also having, honestly, Whitney being number 7 was very, very surprising to me. I thought he should have been lower considerably.
Yeah, and something interesting to note about him is when I'm looking down here towards the bottom here at the singles competitors, obviously you have Merle with 85%, Bateman with 79%, which is skewed slightly by his first couple seasons, and then Video Drew 70%, Seibel 62%. But you will notice Video Drew also just pitched a 100% accuracy in her last teams match from a 58%. She has made dramatic improvement, and also Seibel is also one of those competitors that fits very well inside of a team. So I see him, just based on his numbers and based on the accuracy and success he's seen inside of this league, that putting him in a solid team, maybe a B team, since it's seeming pretty obvious that Merle and Bateman will be the A team, sticking Seibel in with somebody else will definitely put him at a much better advantage than forcing him to be more of a singles competitor. But those are kind of just the basic ideas of what we're looking at here. Molly Damon, obviously, for Star Wars up here, seeing an 81%, kind of similar thing. She's about at that average for Star Wars competitors, but we're seeing the top 3 in the 90%. But again, that 10% accuracy is fairly easily attained within this division if you put in the work. We've seen that level of increase in competitors in seasons past. So I think she is in a good starting point to move into this next season. And also depending on what things she's found that she needs to work on will also determine her level of improvement that we'll see between the seasons. Same thing with Adam Witt. Same idea. He had a strong showing, wasn't able to come out with the win on either of his matches. But again, that improvement perspective is attainable given what it is that you're concentrating on. Obviously, Molly is only going to do Star Wars. Witt could go either direction. All depends on how much that Kaiser wants him to concentrate on that, as well as Mara is wanting to jump into Star Wars as well. So that throws another dynamic into the potential who you're going to pick to throw into what Star Wars division league or tournament.
Something that really surprises me about this is just because I have a hard time trying to decide which one it's going to be. That's going to be the B team. Now, you already said the A team, 100% Merle, Bateman. The B team, in that case, I'm going to assume it's Video Drew and Whitney, but that also means that we're not going to get Adam in teams. That means we're not going to get Jericho part of a team or any of the lower ones, and they're going to be exclusively in singles. Yes. Chris Jericho, I feel like that's a very, very risky one because he's responded himself in a tweet saying, no Roxy, no Jericho. I'm just not going to compete for you. So I wonder if he's just going to sit out or if Kaiser's going to try to work his word magic and try to convince him that the dungeon is his new home. I'm curious to see that happen, or if this is just a trade option that he is really trying to bait Roxy for a potential trade, because that's a big risk, drafting someone in the 8th round just for a potential trade. That's risky.
Yeah. I think the Jericho trade is Jericho pick is a mistake because we've seen Jericho tweet that he would not play for anyone but Roxy, and I think that Kaiser needs the trade more than Roxy needs Jericho. So I feel like this is his biggest blemish of this entire draft.
I want to say just draft someone and add someone else to the roster. If he sees someone in the first class league, whoever that first class league star is going to be, whoever it might be, he could drop Jericho and add that person. So
we'll see. Depending on how much he is wanting to compete and what type of wheels and deals can happen, I'm definitely not knocking Jericho. We love that he's in the league. It's a really neat feather in the cap to say that we've had him in our matches. But definitely something to keep an eye on and something to that could shake up the dynamic of the layout of this meet. So we're
would not be mad if I never saw a Chris Jericho match again. But that's just
we're trying not to get people mad around here, so at least I don't.
Next, I do believe we also had a Streamlabs a few minutes ago. So
Yes.
So Max, I put it in the private chat.
I did, and I'm just looking at that from our good old friend Weston Ira. Here's some change for the hair stats. I mean, Schmo Stats Show. Every great show has multiple names. Very good. Very good. We appreciate that. Thank you very much. So with that, if nobody else has any quick last comments about kind of what the landscape looks like for this team, we're going to move into our next faction.
No Zipper.
Yes, no Zipper in the dungeon, but he's going to come back up around here later, probably next week. But he's still around, just not in here. It will be interesting seeing that. But we are going to look at, while we saw a team that had more veterans and few rookies, we are now seeing the inverse with the usual suspects with 4 veteran competitors, 8 rookies. So far, only one of them being a potential multi-division player, that being Jacob Wittenben, Wittenben. I cannot pronounce that to save my life, who is looking to maybe go into IG and Star Wars. So, but still able to, looks like he has 7 that are pretty well locked into being singles and teams, 2 being confirmed as IG competitors, and 3 as Star Wars, with Paige Fabretti being, according to the draft list, she was not declared to a specific division. If I had my guesses, I would put her in a singles and teams, but I could be wrong. Just
Singles.
More than likely singles.
She wouldn't be allowed to play in teams because they're doing teams in studio.
Well, I think we're mainly trying to not do championship teams until we get into studio, but that's for the higher ups to determine. I'm looking at what kind of numbers do we see and what has been going on in these factions. So pull those off for the moment. When we look at who we have here, there is Ethan Irwin, who was a former champion in singles, and then McQueenie, previously of a championship teams. Pretty solid numbers from all 4 of these veteran competitors. Irwin with 85%, Alicia and Miller 75%, making a huge comeback this past season, really stepping up her game. McQueenie, in his singles, he was at a 76% at that time. Again, he is also one of those that you see performing really well in the teams format, and has had some stumbles in the singles throughout his career. And then you have Stacey Howard, who has some inconsistencies in her accuracy, but when she is on, and she has pulled out some really impressive wins. Just against last year, Eric Zipper, that pull out, as well as beating Gray Drake this past year. So she is definitely, if she is able to apply and able to have some things go her way, she definitely can pull out some high accuracy games and come out with the win. Any comments about any of these rookies? We've got a lot of kind of high profile names in here. I know Amaru was a big name. Paul Hauser was a big name that was getting thrown around. Frankie Alvarez, I remember. Nikki DeMolanta pulling her in for Star Wars. Doug Benson, who was officially drafted but then was dropped last year. So he is coming in again, but still at rookie status because he was not able to play. Danny, any names stick out to you on this list?
Yeah. So one of the big things to note about this year, people were turning, and one of them was the one that we did.
Sorry, Danny, I am having a hard time hearing you. Did you change anything on your end?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't hear you, Boo Boo.
Double check. Hold on.
I can hear you.
Well, now that's better.
Really.
Okay. Now you can hear me?
Yep, there you go.
Okay.
Not sure what you did, but that's better.
I did nothing. So One of the big things to note about this lineup is there are only 2 people returning to Sam's roster that were on there last year, Ethan Irwin and Doug Benson. Doug Benson was dropped. So having Ethan Irwin come back and lead this team with a brand new roster of people is nuts. Sam's up to something. Sam took Amaru Moses in the as the second pick of the overall draft. Like that
Yes.
was like the start of like the snowball falling down, like tumbling down, because after that we just saw rookies go left and right, because I think this is where Sam was setting the precedence. Like, all right, y'all are talking up these rookies, I'm gonna make sure that I get that most hyped one before anyone else can draft them. And I think that that's what started that snowball effect of getting these rookies put in. I think it was a smart choice to go with Marie Wilson. She is the current Dragon Con winner, I believe, which is a big Star Wars thing. That was definitely a big get. The thing about Sassy, the thing about Stacy also, Roxy has said that she might not play, that her availability is kind of weird, so she might not play as much. So is it a smart move? We don't know yet. We'll see. I think either way, Stacy is one of those like wild cards, because you know that she's going to do well. And even if she doesn't pull off a win, at least the match is going to be entertaining, because Stacey Howard fucking delivers. And I loved that last match against her and Gray Drake. That was beautiful. So much fun. I'm excited to see what these rookies do, who these rookies are. I haven't seen a lot of these people play. I'm so pumped for Nikki. Like, I'm glad that Nikki is in the draft and she's on there. And I think working with someone like Sam is going to be very, very good for her. And I think it'll be very interesting for her to have this camaraderie with Marie, because you know, not that Nikki is the lesser of the Dimilantes when it comes to Star Wars knowledge and stuff like that. She's just the rookie inside of the league. So I think working with someone outside of Andrew that has done a big types of Star Wars trivia, I think it's going to work very well for her, because I have a lot of faith in her, and I can't wait to see what she does inside of the league.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say Stacey Howard is one of those that is confounding for statisticians like myself. You know, you look at that, her record and her accuracy, and you're like, really? And then you see some of her matches and you see she is an amazing competitor and so entertaining and so much fun. Just doesn't always have the accuracy to prove it. And she can definitely fall under people's radars if you look at just the numbers and not consider the performance aspect and who she's gone against and what kind of wins and losses she has had. Now, Nat, Alex, anything else on this kind of rookie class, or any thoughts about these guys before we move on? These are fairly, because there's so many rookies, there's not a ton to talk about from the numbers side.
The usual suspects roster is definitely, I feel like, the most interesting to me. It's of the profession that we're discussing today, because I think that it's them and the Finstock Exchange, where as they were drafting, I was hoping someone would tell me how to feel about some of these picks, because I genuinely don't know. Like, if you look at the usual suspects draft from last year, and you look at the usual suspects draft from this year, it's completely different. Like, there's no people in common. So I truly don't know how to feel. I think they have a really strong top 3. I like the Stacey Howard pick. I love Stacey Howard. I always try to draft Stacey Howard in my fantasy leagues, and I think I have every year, and she never lets me down. I think that she, on her best day, could beat anyone. The problem is she's so inconsistent. Like, you never know what Stacey you're going to get. So I feel like 6 is the perfect spot for her to be drafted in. And I don't know how to feel about any of these other people. I like that Sam picked Nikki Dimolanta. I think she could be really good. The rest, I'm not sure how to feel. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they play.
I just want to say one more thing really quickly. I'm super sorry, Alex. With Amadou Moses, like, I feel like he's the homie that's going to have the biggest weight on his shoulders, because he's got a lot to prove. Big shoes to fill, getting the second pick of the draft round. I think the biggest shock for last year was James White getting drafted so early, but unfortunately, with all of the stuff that happened, just did not get the opportunity to do it. So Amadou's got a big, like, he's going to have to show up. A lot of pressure. I'm sorry, Alex.
Well, something I remember is that Drew McQueenie, he never formally retired. And so he is, I get, arguably keeping all 3. He's keeping 3 competitors still. technically he never retired, even though he said I'm leaving. So anyway, but regardless, I also Amaro, yes, he definitely has a lot of pressure on his shoulders. Just echoing what you said, Danielle, earlier, because from what we've been told numerous times, that Sam is he's not so much a hands-off manager, but he is not DMing each and every competitor, having a bunch of conversations. He's here overall if you need him, all that good stuff, but he's not going to be on your ass to make sure you get shit done, and that's very much Kaiser style. He's very, very hands-on. So I think it's actually smart going in the direction of rookies that are actually used to self-management, where they're used to not having a manager, so they're gonna have to really, they know how to self-manage effectively, in this family, essentially. And having Ethan, LaShanna Miller, they're amazing. Drew's fantastic. I don't know if they're going to be leading like group training sessions or anything along those lines. That's something I have a very hard time trying to figure out. Stacy, I want her to be in teams. I would love her to be in singles as well. Like you said, very hit and miss. I do think that after her 2 wins last season, I do think that she's going to go into this season a lot more confident and a lot more excited to compete. At least that's what I'm hoping for. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and just interesting to note of his 2 IG players, the 2 Star Wars, none of them are established competitors. His only retained veterans are either singles or teams. So it's going to be interesting to see how these newer competitors jumping into the IG and Star Wars divisions are going to fare with this format. It's not just about do you have the knowledge, it's can you adapt to the format. So putting all of your IG and all your Star Wars hopes on people who have not played this game specifically. Nikki has a little bit of a heads up because she has trained with Andrew and has helped him prepare. But most all these other guys have been fans of the show and probably understand how it works. But again, being in that environment, being under the spotlights, or being just under the pressure of being in this statement with the way the Schmoedown is particularly, is going to be very interesting to look at. And we'll see how this landscape shifts potentially as we go into the next throughout this season. But let's go ahead and move over into, unless someone has any parting thoughts about usual suspects, we're going to move over into the den. Let's go. A lot of rookies. And so over here in the den, we have a little bit more of a balance here again, where we've got 8 who are veterans or returning competitors, 4 are rookies. Only one of her competitors technically has been declared so far as a potentially multi-division player, and that is Ben Goddard, which Goddard and Preston are going to be the 2 competitors that she is really hinging on to kind of get things rolling. So Goddard's the only one that I can see so far that would be multi-division at this point. And then looking at her Star Wars, she's got 2 lined up for that. She's got 2 lined up potentially for IG. Everybody else, 8 for singles and teams. And again, going with this trend, because of her trade, her first pick was Thomas Harper, who is going to be Star Wars from Dragon Con again. Her former champions would be, she has Mark Yoder Riley, who is a 2-time singles champion and has been no slouch when it comes to teams either, having gotten to the finals and title shots multiple times with Who's the Boss. Her other IG competitor, very solid with Saul, who had a excellent showing, 83%, but still ended up with a loss. That just shows you how crazy the IG division can be. You also have competitors like Jada Paramo, David Del Rio, Rachel Silvestrini, who are established competitors that just need that little extra push or that little extra to really excel inside of their respective divisions. Looking at their accuracies, Silvestrini 63, Del Rio 71, who David Del Rio has made some significant improvements as far as just the way he plays the game, which has shown in how he plays and what his accuracies look like. Jader Paramo, something very interesting about him. He has a very high accuracy when you look at his individual rounds, round 1 and round 3. Very high accuracy. Round 2 is where things kind of go down. Versus we also have Mark Riley, who has a higher potential points earned from rounds 2 and round 3. So meaning he is getting more of those round 2 for their full 2 points, and round 3, he's getting a higher accuracy of those numbers correct. So just throwing out the idea, there's a lower percentage for Riley, but Paramo and Riley evening themselves out as far as the numbers go, because Paramo's going to maybe have the higher accuracy in round 1, but then has Riley to come in and help him with that round 2 accuracy and the gameplay in general. Just something to think about. And then you have Alonso Duralde, who in 48 round 2 questions only gave up 1 steal opportunity win teams, past 2 teams that he has been on. So some very interesting things to look at as far as those guys from the number standpoint. Any comments, Nat? Any thoughts looking at this lineup?
I feel like if I was a manager, I would want to hit this ratio of veterans to rookies. I think this is the perfect balance. I think you have 4 rookies who could be winning lottery tickets. They could be the next Adam Collins. But you also have a lot of veterans who have that experience, who can like teach the rookies how to be a Schmoedown superstar. I will say the one thing that I would not have probably done, I think Saul is a very good player. I think he has a really good accuracy rating. I think she could have gotten away with drafting him later. I don't think he would have been touched later. I think that you don't always want to draft the player you think is the best on the board. I think you draft with who you think you can't get away with drafting later. So I would have changed it up, drafting Saul later. I think it's amazing that she got Mark Riley at 6, because Mark Riley has so much experience and he's such a good teams player. I think that's a steal of pick.
And he also, his singles this past year, he earned quite a few points for the Finstock Exchange inside of that tournament. Even though he ultimately, again, common thing, he ran into Snyder there at the end. But I think he definitely he squeaked out a few wins. But as far as accuracies go, but he definitely is someone you shouldn't overlook. Yep. Alex, thoughts?
The disrespect to Mark Riley, it's rough. 6th round. All right. Okay. Not going to go there. Or
4th round, technically, but yes.
Actually, there's a few that's not in here. There's a few. Oh, yeah, you're right. I'm just looking on here.
Yeah, I know. It's the roster number. That was my bad. I should have put a number.
I'm not surprised that Alonso stayed. I'm very, very surprised it was her first pick.
That would actually be end of the first round because of the trade that she made with Shannon. Okay. That actually she fell to him, or he fell to her at the end of the first round.
I was very surprised. He's kind of similar as Stacey Howard, where he's a very hot and cold competitor, and he's also a very casual competitor as well. So I love to think that things might change around, where he might take it a little more seriously as far as strategy goes. Like there's a handful of times where he can't remember the JTEs, he's not sure when to issue challenges, things like that. So I was very surprised that he was picked up as soon as he was. Maybe like a few rounds later, perhaps. Mark Riley should have been higher. He should have been higher. But
we'll see how that goes. Danny, any parting thoughts here for kind of the recap of what we've got here with the Den?
Yeah, I love this roster. I think this is a great roster for Kate specifically. I'm excited to see what Kate's going to do with the Thomas Harper pick being her first pick. Again, I know that there was some drama and some controversy. I'm not going to get into it, but I think with Sam picking up Amaru as early as he did really made some managers' ears perk up, and I think that was why Kate decided to take Thomas Harper as soon as she did, because Thomas Harper is a big name for the rookie class in the Star Wars division. Mm-hmm. So I think picking him up as soon as she did was a ballsy move on her part. We'll see how that plays off. But interviews that I've seen with Thomas Harper, I very much enjoy his personality. I think he's great. So I'm excited to see him on the Den. I agree with what Alex was saying about Saul and what Nat was saying about Mark Riley. I'm sorry, what Nat was saying about Saul and Mark Riley, and what Alex was saying about Alonso Duralde. I agree with exactly what they're saying. I do think that Saul could have been a bit of a pickup later on inside of the draft. I'm glad that she got him back into the Den. I think that's great. I hate that Mark Riley went as low as he did, but I fucking love that Mark Riley is on the Den. I said this before the draft. I would have loved to have seen Mark Riley go into the Den so he can team up with Paul Preston. I want that team. I want a Mark Riley, Paul Preston team. I absolutely need it. So I really hope that happens. I think that that's great. Peggy Gubbins, one of the Fan League 4, was a big name that was going around. So I'm glad that she was able to pick up Peggy. I'm interested to see what Peggy does. I love Jader. Jader and I can talk about music for literally 3 hours. We did it on Chill to Action. And I love Jader as a person. I'm glad that he got drafted. I'm glad that he's in the Den. I think he's going to work very well inside the Den. Lacey Gillerin, she's amazing. Cannot wait to see what she does inside of the Star Wars League. David Del Rio, I actually saw him on an episode of The Good Doctor the other day, so I'm glad that he's in the league. That's tight. Jessica Sloth. I'm so sorry. I know I'm saying that wrong. I'm Jeff. I know that you're in here. I'm super sorry. Sloth. I'm super excited to see her. I'm excited to see more women inside of this league, and I'm excited to see some bubbly personalities inside of the league. And I'm super pumped to see what Jessica does in the Den. And then, honestly, the biggest crime on here is Rachel Silvestrini being where she is. That's the biggest crime.
That's a whole discussion of where they fell, how many of these veterans were just picked there at those last few rounds. That is a conversation for a more character breakdown. We're more interested in the numbers here today, but very interesting.
I still think that it's good that Rachel is back into the Den because, feelings are going to get hurt with wherever someone lands. I mean, look, Roka didn't give up the 4th round pick all year long. So stuff like that is going to stick with people. But I think Rachel working with Kate in the Den, hopefully her and Ben get back together as a team because I do think that they work well together and round each other out. And that's all I got for the Den. I love it. I'm super pumped for this roster.
Absolutely.
I'm not. I'm really nervous for her being back in the Den overall because because I don't think, given this roster, I don't think Pride is coming back. I really don't, and it hurts my heart because, like you said, Preston, I think he's going to be taken with Riley, and I think Goddard, he's going to be paired with. Paramo, honestly, or maybe Alonso. I feel like that's going to be like the 2 teams. And so that kind of makes me sad knowing that Rachel might be pushed out of that potentially. But I'm really kind of iffy on her and her being in the combination of competitors on this list, honestly. I think she's incredible, like by herself and part of a team. She's an asset to any faction she is a part of. But this is kind of an interesting lineup of characters more than anything to me.
Absolutely. And just the idea of she only has 2 IG competitors and 2 Star Wars competitors, and one of her IG competitors being Ben Goddard. So just looking at the straight numbers, she doesn't have as many maybe options. If, say, Goddard maybe doesn't feel like he's ready for IG at a certain point, she's kind of stuck with only Saul as a solid option. So we shall see how that landscape, how that shifts based on what's going on. But I think, overall, it's a decent combination. We'll see if it works out and how the general dynamics of who's going to be doing what and what type of upfront and what type of challenge she can present specifically in IG and Star Wars. So very interesting outlook there. You guys are being awesome, being active in the chat. Great seeing you guys all here. Make sure you guys are hitting up the thumbs up button. And if you are new to this channel and you have not hit subscribe, please do that. We put up a lot of great content in here. We are about done with this one. We just have one more that we're going to go over today. We are going to come back next week, excuse me, and finish out the rest of the draft, but we are going to end out today with the Quirky Mercs. Again, a very similar ratio. We've got 8 veterans, 4 rookies. 2 of their competitors are considered multi-divisional at this point, and those competitors being Greg Alba and John Humphrey being both singles and teams and IG. Excuse me, I'm starting to lose my voice there. So former champions, Bibiani was a singles champion. Bibiani and Maya are former teams champions. Just looking at this lineup in general, guys, before I get into some of the nitty-gritties of some of the competitors, what are your thoughts of this kind of lineup of teams with 3 IG potential competitors, 2 Star Wars competitors, and 9 singles and teams potentials? Nat, what are your thoughts?
I think this is a very good draft. I feel like I can't believe that Koi lucked out and got Demolanta with his pick. Like, I would have picked Demolanta number 1 overall. He could easily be Star Wars champion by now. Like, he's so good. He puts the work in. He studies. I think Demonta's going to surprise a lot of people this year. I will say that I don't understand the Kevin Smith free agency pick. I understand that he's 2-0, but I don't think he's like top 3 of a roster quality. But I'm glad to see him back with the Mercs. I think he's a lot of fun with Koi. And also, I am super excited that the Real Rejects are together again. So I'm very happy with his roster.
Mac, what do you think?
The relief I felt seeing Sabrina Ramirez drafted was immense. Like, I just kept thinking, I'm like, it's 7, it's 8, it's 9. Where's she at? Where's she at? And finally she was drafted, and I think this is a really great pick for everyone involved. I was very surprised that Kevin Smith was a part of a core trio, to be honest, given his knowledge, honestly, but he is technically 2-0, so that's something to scoff at. Demolanta, I agree with you, Nat, is definitely, to me, the most underrated competitor going into this. A lot of people talked about him. However, I'm really curious to see who is in talks with him, if at all, going into the signings last week. But Jessie Swift, Beth May, I'm mega excited, and the Real Rejects are coming back.
Absolutely. Danny, what are your kind of first reactions here to this?
I love this list. I definitely agree with what everyone is saying. Super pumped. So I want to touch on the Kevin Smith thing really quickly. Roxy said something in one of her streams one time, I'm sorry, about Koi's strategy with drafting Kevin. I think it made a lot of sense. I'm not going to go into a lot of details about it, but it was just basically Kevin's going to get matches either way. He has a winning record. Kevin is also a director inside of this space. Koi works inside of this space. So having a good relationship with someone could be beneficial to Koi outside of the Schmoedown. I know it's not Schmoedown sexy strategy, but it's still a life strategy that I think fucking makes sense. And yeah, someone would have picked up Kevin Smith either way. So maybe Koi would have lucked out and picked him up later on in the draft, but why risk it when you can? And I think that with that snowball effect of getting Amadou second and then Kate going with Thomas Harper third, let the lane right open for a fucking huge score for Koi. Andrew Demolanta, who I predicted would go number 1 inside of the entire draft. That's a fucking steal. It's not a steal. It's a get. Like, dude, you fucking got it. And I think Andrew Demolanta is going to crush this season in Star Wars. I really do. I think he's going to work very well with Koi. I think Koi is a good manager, and I think that despite his internet issues, is very fun to see on screen. And I love everyone that came back to this team. Perry coming back, the Real Rejects coming back. I think Beth May is going to be a new face that works Chef's Kiss for this team. And then Sabrina, I think they're changing her name to the Siren. I fucking love that.
That's awesome. That's a good one.
I'm so pumped for Sabrina because I think she's going to bring this intensity in a way to the Mercs. I just want to see Sabrina more. I think that she's great as a person on SEN, and I love to watch her on First Cut, and I would love to see her play more. Absolutely, 100%.
I made a tweet as a response to this, and it just said this feels like the most on brand draft selection. Like all these people, I'm like 100% Mercs. Like they're like some of them I can be like, oh, I guess technically they can go to the den or the dungeon, but looking at this lineup, I'm like 100% each and every one of them fit inside the Mercs, and
Absolutely.
Eric Whitley from
self live. I'm right. It's true.
And saying that inside of the chat too, Eric from Blind Wave. That's a big pool too. That's going to be a big audience that you're going to get in. So that's a big audience that's going to come into the Schmoedown, and it's going to be a big audience that's going to focus on the Mercs as well. And I think that's nothing but a good look. So that's going to be. I think that's a good draft right there, man.
It's a solid strategy. Having financial stuff involved, like there's like a whole thing where merch is going to be involved with factions and everything for managers, and that's a huge motivators for making these selections. So when it comes to Jericho, Kevin Smith, Brittany Young, and some of these other competitors, it totally makes sense for sure.
Absolutely. So just kind of looking at some of the numbers for these retained competitors that are coming back, Greg Alba and John Humphrey coming back, potentially going to be jumping into IG again, 73 and 61% accuracy respectively. But again, thinking about that potential for that 10-point increase in accuracy with the proper amount of studying will definitely play into that. Andy DeMolanta at 93% already. Coming into the season, 0-2 definitely did not. We were proven wrong once he jumped into this tournament. Putting up a 100% accuracy match first against Scrimshaw, which was a barn burner match to watch. Totally blew my socks off when I was watching through all that. What else can you say about Bibbs and Meyer? Those are both fantastic competitors. Kevin Smith for 2-0 at 88% accuracy, not too shabby. We'll see how he goes as he moves up the rankings. Specifically, because we know he is very likely to get at least 1 or 2 matches this season. So very interesting to see how those numbers track. Perry Nemiroff coming back from having not competed for a very long time, but having a really big win against Kalinowski. And she has had 100% round 2 accuracy during that entire tournament. That is nothing to scoff at, absolutely. Being able to capitalize on some of those more specific categories on the wheel that I think you're going to see being a very big factor moving into this next season. And of course, Sabrina Ramirez had a really tough going out that first match, but I anticipate that with proper coaching and being able to prep a little bit and maybe getting that first nerves out, expecting to see some better numbers coming from her this next season as well. And of course, always excited to see some of these new faces coming in and what they're going to bring to their respective divisions.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And not to mention, I do think, is this the most continued retained faction out of all of them, or no?
As far as how many competitors are coming back?
Yes, with Terry, Biz, Meyer, Kevin.
It's 5 people.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's 5 competitors.
Yeah.
I am pretty sure.
Between Real Rejects, Quirky Mercs, Kevin Smith, Perry, that's 6.
I would have to double check each faction, but I'm pretty sure that Quirky Mercs do have the most. The only one who potentially might have more would be Roxy, but I don't think so. Because she has 3.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Roxy has 3 competitors coming back. We're thinking if Quirky Mercs has the most returning competitors.
Shannon does.
Of course, Shannon.
I stand corrected.
Yes.
I stand corrected. Totally. Corruption has 8. You're totally right.
That's what I get for not double checking my numbers. See, but yes, they definitely. Quirky Mercs has, aside from corruption, I believe has the most, which is impressive. And considering that Shannon was able to keep her top 3 right off the bat, definitely aided her in that, but she definitely was pushing hard. And actually, she was able to retain 4 initially. So she really worked hard to get those other 4 as well. So interesting to see how that will play out for her. And we are going to close out this segment because we're only going to go through those top 4 draft rosters right now. If you want to see how we break down and what we're thinking about those next 4, come back next week. We are going to shoot for this same time and day, but pending some other decisions. But so happy to have you guys join me and all you guys watching. Hope this was insightful and an interesting way to look at all these draft competitors. Absolutely a part is very sweet that you may not tell him that, but I will take it from you.
Well, I'm gonna tell him that right now.
Absolutely. All right,
Well,
that's
we're just
fine.
gonna clip this and just keep it going forever.
Anyways, but thank you guys so much. If you guys are liking this, again, subscribe so you can get notified of all other channels. If you want to see more of us, check out Patreon. We are on Patreon. Check out those tiers. See if there's something there that is right for you. And thank you guys again so much for participating. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe, and if you can, after this airs, or if you're coming back to it later, please leave a comment. We enjoy seeing comments from you guys and thoughts on how we can improve these shows, and just hearing wonderful things from you all. So, Nat, what kind of things can we expect from you? What do you have going, sir?
Yeah, this is so weird. This is like 5 times the audience that Twitch Tuesdays get. You can find me on Twitch on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. every week. Find me on Twitter at 9days44. And I'm also working on a new show, and I am not exaggerating. This will win us our 3rd award. The stuff I have planned is so good. I'm actually going to be filming right after this with our first guest, Brendan Meyer. I'm not going to tell you what the show is yet, but be sure to check that out.
And Miss Alex.
You can find me on Twitter at real_AlexMac. You can also find me hosting Schmoebaits. I am trying to do it do an episode every 2 weeks, and we're going to be having an episode with a few of our randomly selected patrons here coming up very soon. And I'm really excited about our guests. It's going to be awesome. That's it.
All right. And Miss Danny.
What's up, y'all? You know me. It's your girl, Danny Joy. You can find me on Twitter at Danny Joy, DANIEEJOY. You can also find me here on the Call to Action Network. Used to be every Sunday. We're moving to Mondays. There's a lot of construction going around on the Call to Action Network with what we're going to do. But if you want to know a little bit more about what Shannon Barney thought about Wicker Draft, you can go and watch yesterday's Chill to Action episode with myself, Paul Denuzio, and Kelsey Kirkland, where we hang out with Shannon Barney, talk about the draft, all of that good stuff. Go watch those old Chill episodes also. Sign up for our Patreon, like, comment, and subscribe on this video. All of that good stuff. Give your puppies a belly rub for me. Tell your people you love them.
Absolutely. And if you want to follow along with me, you can find me at Megs_reclaimed on Twitter, Instagram, and I'm also posting all the stats from past seasons, as well as what's going to be going on in this next season. And you'll be able to find me back here on this show, After Action Report, where we're going to be moving into, once the season starts, a little different programming. But next week, we are going to be, again, going into the next batch of factions, the final 4, to see how they did and how they compare with everybody else. And Thrawn, love seeing you. Yes, we're shooting for this show to be a little bit more of a shorter form instead of our sometimes typical 2 to 3 hour shows. We're shooting for that hour, 45 minutes to an hour and a half, and we are just over an hour now, so I think we accomplished that. Again, thank you guys so much. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, please, and we shall see you again shortly. Bye-bye.
Pineapple belongs on pizza.
Bye, y'all.
Pineapple forever.